Hello and welcome back to the channel where we talk about crypto and real world digital assets with utility like XRP, XLM, HBAR, XDC, to name a few. Again, please hit those likes, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I hope everyone is doing absolutely fantastic out there, and I am Zip here to walk through this journey with you as we look at the macro view of what is going on in these markets and just building that big picture. So let's take a look at the current price action as this video is being made. We know Bitcoin shot up to about a little over $125,000, and now it's taking a breath and is back down at 118. XRP at 311. Cardano's had some impressive movement, up to 92 cents, 21% up on the 7-day. Stellar sitting around hovering at 42 cents. And how about Stronghold? I keep mentioning SHX because that's one of those sleepers that is working behind the scenes, growing, and is another real world utility coin, digital asset, if you're new to this environment, that, you know, is still at a very nice price level, but is starting to move up. And when they start to list those tier one exchanges and they get on those, that price is really going to start to skyrocket. But again, the theme here, ladies and gentlemen, is we don't pay attention to the markets too much. I bring them up for you to keep it. We keep an eye on things. We know in the end, with the assets that we own and the changing of the financial system, which we're going to talk about here with some videos that I have, it's all changing, and this technology is being implemented into the financial system to take over the old, inundated, slow, clunky, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day financial system that costs us a lot of money to move money around. These technologies are going to go 24/7 and cost a fraction of what it costs us now. But let's get into some of that information. And how about the super cycle is confirmed? Are you ready for the super cycle? We've been talking about Q4, leading up to Q4, and the massive explosions that absolutely could happen because of, one, clarity, legal laws being done, that Clarity Act hopefully getting done in September when Congress comes back from their summer vacation, and then get that Clarity Act pushed through. We already have had the Genius Act bill pushed through, but we have all of these companies also buying XRP, buying Bitcoin, buying Ethereum, creating treasuries within their workflows and in their businesses, which again is causing a surge. We have spot ETFs that are coming, the deadlines for the XRP spot ETFs, as well as many of the other ones, Solana, HBAR, those deadlines are mid-October, all coming together. Strategic reserve, the United States is fully behind this environment as well as the world is. All this together is going to create a super cycle, possibly late Q4 or in Q4 going into 2026. But pretty interesting here. I like this picture here. This is the normal psychology of the market. If you're not familiar with this, if you're brand new to investing, which we don't give financial advice on this channel, we just talk about our journey and the digital assets that we like. But if you're not used to this market, normally it starts to take off and we have that euphoria phase, and then it starts to come back down, bear market. But is that going to change this time? We're going to find out, but we'll be here to report it for you. Now, how about this? We're talking about the traditional finance system and how flawed it is, and how cryptocurrencies and these assets are going to be the fix for that, especially the real world assets. Let's take a listen to what Trump has to say here.
Many Americans are unaware that behind the scenes, the technical backbone of the financial system is decades out of date, many, many years out of date. You know that Paul and others are straightening it out, but payments and money transfers are costly and take days or even weeks to clear. Under this bill, the entire ancient system will be eligible for a 21st century upgrade using the state-of-the-art crypto technology.
Again, exactly what we talk about day in and day out to provide you the foundational understanding of really what is going on behind the scenes. Now, many of us could care less as long as we can move money more quickly and it's more cost effective. And at the end of the day, many of you are just waiting for price go up, which is absolutely going to be coming, but you want to have that education, you want to be immersed, so you can understand this conversion that is going on with the digital assets that you possibly own or are investigating and looking into. If you're on the sidelines, I wouldn't wait too long. We are still early. If you're brand new to this environment, just educate yourself. But we are going through that transformation. And when utility starts to kick in and they start to utilize this and more institutions come into this environment, things are going to take off. Remember, this crypto environment, those that are invested in crypto is still a very, very small fraction of the larger percentage of the world out there. But many of you already know that. You've seen the vision, you understood what was going on, and you got in early, or you're getting in now, which is still early. Now, the old system, they're not going to go down without a fight. And this article here, is again, the Consumers Banking Association and all the big banks, the American Bankers Association, the Financial Services Forum, they hate this technology. Why? Because as we've discussed in other videos, the old clunky system, they can charge us a bunch of fees. They can charge us to take loans, which in this environment, we'll be able to use our assets to leverage and get loans in the future if it makes sense. We have DeFi capability. We have staking capability, which we'll talk about here in a minute, that allow us an opportunity to earn yield without the banks. But we can see here, the banks are in arms about the Genius Act. And within the Genius Act, part of that requirement is that the issuer of any stablecoin cannot offer, interest or yield on their product. However, what they're saying here, and we already see this like on Uphold, on Binance, on Kraken, you can earn yield on those platforms. And the banks are absolutely scared to death that once people figure this out, which you already have that understood, you'll be able to take your money out of the bank, put it into these platforms, into these environments, as these regulations come in, and earn yield as compared to a traditional savings account, to where it sits there and they give us a measly, I don't know, couple percent if you're lucky. In this, if it's a high yield account, maybe 4%, but then we get charged all the fees and all the other things that go into it. They are scared to death, and they have released this document trying to fight that and asking Congress to go back and modify the Genius Act so that, these platforms, these exchanges, and these other environments that are coming cannot offer yield on stable coins. It just shows where the potential is going with this asset class and how scared the old system, the old guard, the old money, if you would, is. Absolutely, this is going to make an impact for us in the future. And that's that macro view of opportunity that is coming. And that's why we just have to be patient, wait for all this to come out and be flushed out. But they're up in arms and they're pushing against it as usual. But I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Now, what could possibly enhance this bull run, this altcoin bull run going into Q4? Look at this, 94% chance that interest rates get dropped in September. Now, we've been talking about interest rates for quite a while, and there's different thoughts out there. Many people believe that the rates should have been dropped months ago. I'm one of those. They should have dropped the rates, Other economists believe that it's, CPI is too high and the rates shouldn't be dropped. Hence, the Fed has not dropped those rates. But if they drop those rates in September, and they're saying it's a 94% chance that we're going to get a rate drop, what that basis point drop will be, time will tell. But it's actually going to be another accelerant within this environment, because it's like free money. People are going to feel like, the mortgage rates are going to go down, and it's going to create and print more money in folks' pockets, and risk on assets like this environment, like XRP, like HBAR, XLM, are going to skyrocket and take off. It's just like a turbocharger for this environment. So we will see what happens in the coming months. But as all this is going on behind the scenes, the SEC, who is now very pro crypto and has Project Crypto in full work, is working right now. Before, they're not waiting as they did previously. They're not waiting for the regulation to get passed, for the Clarity Act to get passed. They are moving ahead. Let's listen to this Hester Peirce interview as she discusses what they're doing with the rulemaking and how they're defining an environment so that institutions understand how to utilize these capabilities, the digital asset cryptos that you and I own.
Market structure. We know that crypto market structure bill is working its way through. The sense seems to be on the street that it faces a much tougher go-ahead than the stablecoin bill, for example. I would love to hear your thoughts there.
Well, I don't prognosticate about legislation any more than I do about where the markets might go in terms of which models of tokenization they might embrace. But I do think that the work has been really impressive on the part of the House, and the Senate is now looking at these issues. It's a very complicated piece of legislation to work out, but I think important, and we're happy to work with people in both the House and the Senate on trying to get it to the place where it will help to guide the shaping of the industry.
And just game planning here. Let's say that Congress isn't able to finish this market structure bill by November. What would that mean for the SEC and your approach to regulation?
I think one thing that's important to underscore is that we at the SEC are not waiting for legislation to work. We have a lot of work that we can do under the existing authority that we have, and we think that the President's Working Group report urged us to take those steps. And so we've been working since January on providing guidance about where the...
Again, they're not waiting, and this is what we want to see. What a breath of fresh air as compared to the old administration, the old SEC, and how they are really taking the bull by the horns and changing that environment, ensuring that this new technology can be utilized. And there's a framework of rules around it so that the companies, the businesses, the institutions absolutely know how and what they are allowed to do and what they can't do. Not waiting for Congress to pass anything. Exciting. Now, let's change the conversation a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about Flare and what's going on with VivoPower. But let me remind you that Flare is another one of those projects that is very, very economically cheap. Not financial advice, but if you haven't looked at Flare and what is going on, I've done other videos on that. We're going to talk about the XRP staking. We've talked about that in other videos, but Flare is absolutely building up power, and we're seeing them have a lot of partnerships with different companies uphold VivoPower, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, as well as now crypto.com, not directly, but through the affiliation with VivoPower. Flare, in my opinion, is going to do very, very well. And we're probably getting ready to see a nice explosion. So if you got something sitting on the side, look at this project. Do not sleep on it, and just take an evaluate it if you want to add it towards your portfolio. Again, not financial advice. Now, VivoPower. if you remember, if you're brand new, we'll go over this a little bit, but VivoPower, which is a US based company, basically is in collaboration, partnership with Flare. They're partnering with Flare. They're going to have a $121 million, XRP treasury that they want to maximize and earn yield on. And they're working with Flare to get that done. All right. Now they have partnered with crypto.com to add support to their digital asset treasury, strategy. Let's listen to this and walk through this video, and we'll kind of discuss what's going on here from a macro perspective. So again, they're joining forces as a strategic partners for custody solutions, which is those of you that use crypto.com is going to add and enhance a capability to access Flare XRP staking capabilities through this partnership with VivoPower. So they've selected crypto.com to provide custodial support for the expansion of its digital asset treasury, which is XRP and some other holdings, strategy with regard to Carrot's digital asset mining strategy. There'll be an end-to-end solution, safe environment, and secure environment. That's what we look for when we're trying to earn yield and such on our assets that we hold. And not only will you be able to access digital assets, but you also would be able to access, their actual stock platform, stocks that crypto.com offers, similar to Kraken. If you have a Kraken account, you can go out there and you can have a brokerage account through Kraken and you can buy traditional stocks if that's your thing and you're into that. This is a big partnership. Again, VivoPower keeps coming up and they're making strong moves, but providing this as just an example of what is going on from a treasury perspective of these companies that are coming into the environment. They're building treasuries in the digital asset environment because they see the big macro picture. Other news for VivoPower. VivoPower to gain exposure to 211 million XRP tokens, which we were just talking about, through budget. It's $100 million acquisition of privately held Ripple shares. They see what is going on and they have a concerted effort with XRP and Ripple for that exposure. That's what is exciting. That's what we want to be looking at. And this, is happening across the world. We talk about Bitcoin, companies that have Bitcoin treasuries. We talk about and we see some companies with Solana, building Solana treasuries. All in all, it's growth. That's the point. That's the macro view that I'm trying to put across here. And hopefully you see that larger picture of where we are going in the future. Now, with that, please be absolutely safe. Going to drop some other video content on tokenization. I've got the interview with Caleb and Brown that I'm going to be doing this evening. If you have any comments, anything that you would like me to ask Jim, please put them in the comments. We'll make sure we get those asked. Very excited for where we are going, and it's just getting better day by day, month by month. Have that macro mindset and that strategy in place. So someday we are going to spend all of our time, or a lot of our time, on the most beautiful beaches of the world, hanging out, building other companies, helping other people. That's it. What is your purpose going to be when you, so to speak, hit the lottery possibly with these digital assets? Again, with that, until next time, Zip is out.